I love fire. I've always loved fire. I love its light. I love its heat. I love that whether it's in my stove or whether it's over a bonfire that I can cook. I love sitting around a bonfire, looking at a candle and getting lost in the flames, even as everybody around me might be singing or the storytelling is going on at the bonfire. Losing myself in those flames and just letting the evening pour over me. Making space in that moment for something stronger, for something that feels a little bit deeper. Just letting it roll. I find fire is one of those things in my world and my life where technology, and I'll say more about that in a moment, and spirituality meet. So often people think about technology as our latest gadget, the computer that you just left behind, your phone that you're using for all kinds of different things these days, or that computer chip that goes in the toy that my 6-year-old has that flips over and over and over and over and over again. But that's not all it is. The context for technology is much broader and extends over a much greater period of time. W. Brian Arthur understands that anything that's technology needs to be built on stuff that already exists. So as you can imagine, I go right back to fire. Fire exists. And the lighting, the cooking, the warmth of controlled fire, the clearing of fields, the combustion engine, planes, those are all technologies that are built off of fire. And it doesn't stop there. A hammer is technology. I also think about the washing machine. Yeah, I know. But I do think about it because the washing machine was a transformative technology. It changed the lives of people because it allowed people to go from spending all kinds of time washing their clothes to being able to put it in the washing machine and leave. It freed people to explore their lives, to explore their spirituality, to explore who they were in a fundamentally different way, in particular for women, than ever before. Elevators, which allowed us to build buildings reaching up toward the skies, changing the urban landscape, changing architecture, and the way that we understand beauty in the world. Or the television that gave us a whole new platform for expressing ourselves, for creation in the world, and then, of course, the ability to share that, to communicate across the world. All technologies. I want to say something also about spirituality and how I understand that this evening. It's that pursuit or that striving for connection for something greater than ourselves. In Judaism, clearly that has something to do with striving to connect more deeply with God. But for some of us, it's about striving to connect with the essence of the world, or the flow of the universe, or to figure out how we can be more whole ourselves so that we can serve the world and make it a better, stronger place. And I'm struck, as I said, by those places where those two things, spirituality and technology, come together. There are any number of people who have been trying to figure out what's the meaning behind technology for years. I mentioned W. Brian Arthur, Kevin Kelly, many more in the contemporary world, but certainly Maimonides was one also who understood that the natural sciences, even the earth, could be seen as Torah, as giving us a deeper understanding of how our spiritual lives can be full. And I've been playing with this. I want to look at 3 different areas. First, I want to take a look at our everyday lives. Second, I want to take a look at the ways in which the world on high is reflected in our world today. And third, the ways in which technology allows us to be full, complete human beings who are expressing ourselves to our fullest. So let's talk the everyday. Proverbs 3:6 says something along the lines of, in all ways, we should serve God. One of the interpretations of that is that literally in every way during our day, we should be serving God. You see this across all kinds of traditions. The idea that when you're sweeping, when you're folding laundry, when you're doing the dishes, or when you're meditating, or when you're sitting at your computer, you should be serving and aware of God. Jaron Lanier, one of the early pioneers in virtual reality, was speaking at a recent South by Southwest conference, and he actually asked everybody in his session to not use technology for the moment. Stop the blogging, stop the texting, and so on. There was some grumbling, but people went along with it for the most part. And afterward, and I'm paraphrasing, he explained that the reason he did that is that he understands that when you stop to think about what's being said, you put yourself in it. And that's how we live. That's how we become real in the world, is when we're in it. If we don't do that, all we are is reflecting something. And where are you in that? Now, I'm not saying, and I even don't think he's saying, that when you see that unbelievable sunset across the Hudson River, that you shouldn't take that picture with your phone and post it. Or that when you have that moment with a friend who is so dear to you that you've seen for the first time in a year, that you shouldn't snap a picture of the two of you and share it online. Rather, it's that we need to bring ourselves to those moments. We need to take that moment to think and to process, and then post, and then share. I'm also not convinced that Jaron Lanier has it quite right with reflecting. Robert Fulghum talks about a professor who carried a mirror around in his pocket all the time. And in our world, Torah is the light. But for him, he understood the sun, or just us in the world, coming into contact with all kinds of different light. And he described the way that the sun would shine down on the earth, such a strong light, but there were still spaces that didn't get sun, that were dark. And he understood our responsibility was to be mirrors, sometimes to reflect the light that was shining on us into those dark places. Third, I want to take a moment and look at how technology is there for us to become our whole selves. Kevin Kelly understands that technology has a responsibility in our world to create opportunities for us and for future generations to have that opportunity to become all we can be. And in doing so, to create more opportunities and more opportunities for future generations. He thinks about Mozart without a piano. That Mozart, without that piece of technology, could have never become who he became. I think about these girls. And I imagine Jaron Lanier, who I mentioned just a moment ago, thinking about them, stretching and thinking and figuring out how they can be whole. I also think about the ways in which John Coltrane might have been without his sax, or Annie Leibovitz without her camera, Sandy Koufax without his baseball, or Steven Spielberg without the opportunities to engage in movies. They still would have been brilliant and creative. But those technologies help them be even more than that in their world and in their lives. I think that Judaism understands it similarly. Judaism gets it. It's the idea that we're all made, we're all stamped by God from the same die, but still we each come out unique. A number of people have taught about this, but I actually learned this idea from Shai Held, that the uniqueness isn't so that we can turn to somebody next to us and say, I'm so great, I'm the best. or turn to the person on the other side and say, I'm better than you. Rather, it's that we have a particular responsibility in our lives to serve that uniqueness, to fulfill who we're supposed to be in the world, to make the world whole and complete as well. Last, I want to take a look at the way the world above is reflected in the world that we live in. I'm so struck by this idea that the world above is reflected here. And one of those places is in the ways that we're all interconnected. And technology allows that to happen more and more and more, whether it's a car that allows us to drive, or a plane that allows us to fly, or the phone, or the computer, or email, or on and on and on and on. I'm struck by the vision of those lights, that electronic world stretching all over our universe. And the way that is so reflective of this vision in Jewish mysticism of being interconnected. Not that it's one and the same, but I believe that it suggests we just are interconnected. It's just who we are. It's just how we work. So when we see it happening in our world, we need to care for it and approach it in a different, thoughtful way. So whether it's in your everyday, whether it's in those moments of looking for ways that technology can help make you whole, or whether it's caring for those ways that our world is reflected of the world above, we need to bring ourselves with us into those moments with technology. We need to care for our spirit. We need to remember, however you understand the divine, that these are opportunities to care for and connect with divinity, with our soul and with our spirit. I imagine powerfully in those moments where spirituality and technology connect, that it's not a dimming, but rather it's a meeting where the two flames come together ever brighter.
Thanks for watching Eli Talks. Click through or subscribe to the Eli Talks channel for more inspired Jewish ideas.